Doberman puppy, trapped in hot tar, gets help from loyal dog. What happened next will shock you. Heat. So hot the air itself felt like it could ignite with a single breath. Texas, mid-July. The gauge on the truck read 103 degrees, but the asphalt had to be worse. The smell of burnt tar diesel smoke and dry sand fused into one heavy choking mix that clung to the throat like ash. I'm Jake Turner, captain of the Texas Wildlife and Rescue Unit. That morning, the radio cracked with a hoarse, urgent voice. We've got a dog stuck in an old tar pit south of Route 214. Looks like it's still alive. I thought I'd misheard. A tar pit. Out by that abandoned construction site. That place used to be an asphalt mine back in the 80s now, just black crusted ground that still bubbled when the heat got bad. Nobody went near it except the lost. I grabbed my helmet, motioned to Lisa, my field tech, and we took off. The road stretched 2 miles through red dust that coated the windshield. We didn't speak. Only the static hiss of the radio filled the cab between waves of heat. When we stopped at the edge of the pit, I heard a howl, long, cracked, breaking apart like a human sob. It wasn't the sound of a stray. It was the sound of someone calling for help. I stepped out. The sun hit my face. Heat shimmered off the ground like fire. And then I saw it. A Doberman puppy, maybe 4 months old, was nearly motionless in the thick black tar. Half its body submerged, its chest still rising, weak but alive. At the rim, an adult Doberman, skinny, filthy eyes, blood red, paced in frantic circles, whining, leaning over the pit, as if it could will the world to rewind. Lisa gasped, "Oh God, he's still breathing, Jake." I knelt by the edge. The tar's surface gleamed like glass in the sun. Tiny bubbles popped one by one, releasing a sweet burnt stench, the smell of danger of life burning slowly away. The puppy opened his eyes. They locked on mine, clouded, terrified, but with one faint spark still fighting inside. No bark, only ragged breaths that sounded like prayer. In my head, I heard it as clearly as words, "Please, hurry." The bigger dog growled, lunging forward, trying to pull the pup's tail with his teeth only to make the tar quiver, drawing a soft whimper from below. I raised my hand. "No, stop, buddy. Let us handle it." He froze, then backed off, panting, hard eyes never leaving the smaller one. It wasn't just fear. It was love, raw, desperate, and loud without a single sound. I looked at Lisa, grabbed the thermometer, solvent kit. We move now. She nodded and ran for the truck. I stayed there, eyes fixed on the little one. A hot gust swept across the pit, rippling the tar like the surface of hell. One thought kept hammering in my skull. 5 more minutes, and he'll stop breathing. The adult, who I'd later learn was named Scout, moved closer, touched his nose to the tar's edge. The noise that came out was barely there, trembling almost a sob. He wasn't afraid of us. He was begging. I looked around, no people, only sundust and 2 souls waiting for a miracle. I didn't know where they came from, who left them, or why one was trapped while the other stayed. But I knew one thing. If a creature calls for help, I answer. I tightened my chin strap, leaned over the boiling black, and whispered like a vow, "Hold on, kid. I'm not letting you die here." The words dissolved into the heat, but I swear the puppy heard them. He blinked once, slow, deliberate, a fragile nod of trust. When Lisa returned with the gear, Scout howled again, no longer in despair, but as if announcing something had begun. We met each other's eyes. No words, just one sharp nod, and then we stepped down. The rescue began. My name is Jake Turner. I'm 52, born and raised in Texas, living in a wooden house surrounded by wind dust and the smell of gasoline. I work for the Texas Wildlife and Rescue Unit, 20 years on the job, pulling horses from floods, freeing deer from barbed wire, carrying fox cubs off highways. But that morning, outside Spring Creek, everything felt different. It wasn't just a rescue. It was a reminder that some creatures love with such loyalty it makes your heart bow in silence. The tar pit we were heading to had been abandoned for over 30 years. Locals used to call it the Black Pond, a thick pool of asphalt once used to patch the old highway. Now it was just a sunken pit, overgrown with weeds, its black bottom still bubbling whenever the heat spiked. No one ever imagined that a place built to fix roads would turn into a trap for something small and breathing. When Lisa Grant, my field tech, and I arrived, Scout was already circling the edge, whining nonstop. Lisa's the toughest one on the team. 8 years working beside me, she once rescued a horse trapped in mud for 14 hours without resting once. But that day, the moment she saw the puppy in the tar, her face went pale. God, Jake, he's so small. Still breathing, I said. That means we've got a chance. It was past 10 a.m. The sun dropping like a hammer dry, merciless no wind. Sweat evaporated the instant it formed, leaving white salt stains on our collars. The tar bubbled and spat, releasing that sickly burnt smell that sticks to your tongue. I scanned the area, no shade, just red dirt and rusted warning signs that read, "Danger, asphalt waste." We set up a safety perimeter 5 meters out. I grabbed the radio. Unit 4 on site Route 214. One Doberman puppy trapped in tar weak but breathing. Requesting mobile medical and solvent type A. The reply crackled through static. Copy that. ETA, 18 minutes. 18 minutes doesn't sound long under a Texas sun. It's a lifetime. I knelt near the edge. Hey there, little one. The puppy stirred, trembling. Each breath looked like a war. Lisa unrolled the solvent kit towels and extraction clamps. He's looking at me, she whispered. He's trying to believe. Then we have to be worth believing in, I said. Beside me, Scout, the adult Doberman, stood, frozen eyes locked on the pup. His ribs showed through proof he'd been wandering for days. A faint mark around his neck where a collar used to be. No chip, no tag, no leash. Just fear and exhaustion. He trembled, not from fright of us, but from the terror of losing what little he had left. Lisa murmured, "You think they're family?" I shook my head. No. Scout's a male, but maybe they came from the same pack. Or someone dumped them here. She went quiet, lips pressed tight. Lisa hated those 2 words more than anything left behind. The wind shifted. Scout lunged forward, barked once sharp, urgent, and met my eyes. That look hit me like a punch. I've seen hundreds of animals, wild, broken, numb, but never eyes like that. It wasn't begging for itself, it was begging for another. I stood, took a deep breath, and looked down at the pup, sinking slowly in the black. If we hesitated, the tar would cool and harden like stone. No solvent on earth could free him then. Set up the gear, I ordered. Throw up a tarp for shade. We move now. Lisa nodded, dragging the cooling hose from the truck. You ever handled something like this before? No, I said, eyes still locked on the pit. But I'm not letting this be our first failure. Scout stepped back and sat down, tail twitching, as Lisa spread the rescue blanket along the rim. He understood. And somehow, I knew this wasn't just about saving one life. It was about giving faith back to both of them. I leaned forward, voice steady low. Listen, kid. We're gonna pull you out, I promise. Then I turned to Lisa, tightened my gloves, and said the words that still echo in my head. Every time I see the sun hit black asphalt, let's begin. The surface temperature of the tar read 127 degrees. That number flickered on the display like a heartbeat counting down the wrong way. Each blink a warning that if we slowed down, the tar would cool, harden, and trap the puppy's body forever inside a black tomb no one could break. Lisa knelt beside me, gloved hands trembling slightly. Start at the shoulders, she asked softly. If we pull from the wrong angle, we'll snap a bone. 1 inch at a time, I said. Watch the chest, his breathing's weak. I pressed my knees to the rim, the smell of asphalt burning thick in my throat. The tar hissed and bubbled, tiny pops echoing like a clock ticking down to 0. I poured the solvent drop by drop, just enough to loosen without burning skin. It crackled, steamed white, and the heat pulsed through the gloves like fire. Easy, kid. Slow and easy. Ranger whimpered, flinched once. His eyes opened wide, shaking, but he didn't fight. That was the sign I needed. He still trusted. Above us, Scout stood motionless, ears pinned, body rigid. Every few seconds he let out a low, broken sound as if marking time with us. Lisa glanced up. "You see that?" "He's not leaving. He's standing guard." "Yeah," I murmured. "He knows the little one still needs him." We worked as though time itself had thinned. One scraped, one poured. Our hands, our breath, our hearts fell into the same rhythm. No words left, only the sizzle of solvent and the soft clink of metal against tar. Sweat dripped onto the black surface and boiled the instant it touched. I tilted my head to look at Ranger's face, charred black and tan fur, eyelids glued with dust and tar, but his breathing was steadier now. Good boy. Just a little longer. Lisa grabbed a lighter solvent. "Chest is free, Jake, but his hind legs are sunk deep." I nodded, shifting closer, sliding the thin metal wedge beneath the edge. Each tiny push drew a faint whimper from Ranger, barely a sound, just air breaking. And with every whimper, Scout howled once. The sound rippled across the empty lot, painful, steady, unrelenting. I realized then he wasn't just watching. He was lending us strength, one cry at a time. "I hear you, buddy," I whispered. "We'll get him out." Lisa looked at me, lips pressed, tight eyes bright behind her goggles. We both knew it. Some creatures can't speak yet. Somehow they teach us what it means not to quit. 2 hours passed like minutes. When I reached the belly, the tar cracked sharp and dry. Ranger's body shuddered once, then stilled. Lisa checked for a pulse. Still there. Weak, but still. I exhaled hard, wiped my forehead, and kept loosening the edges. The wind kicked up swirling red dust around the pit. The sun had shifted west gold light glinting off the tar like the skin of something alive. I knew one slip, one cut too deep, and we'd bleed him before we saved him. Slow, Jake. I know. Another inch, another hiss of smoke. The mix of asphalt and solvent burned our eyes raw. Lisa muttered, voice breaking, "How could anyone leave them like this?" I didn't answer. I've heard that question 100 times. No answer ever fits. A layer peeled away, freeing his front legs. I laid my hand on them, still warm. That alone was enough to feed hope. I looked down at him, whispered like a vow, "We're getting you out of this hole, kid. I swear it." Above us, a Scout lifted his head and howled again, long, trembling, carrying over the field. But this time, it didn't sound like despair. It sounded like faith. "I believe you." More solvent now, I shouted over the wind. Lisa switched the hose, her hand shaking from the heat sweat dripping onto the tar and evaporating in an instant like steam. The whole site reeked of asphalt and chemicals. Even with our masks on, the air burned through every layer, scalding the lungs. Above us, the sun was merciless, dead center in the sky. The thermometer read 130 degrees. Ranger whimpered, his small body twitching. The chest was free, but the tar around his belly and hind legs had hardened to stone. I planted both hands at the pit's edge and yelled into the radio central, "We need more Type B solvent and veterinary wraps." Upper body almost clear. Static hissed before a faint reply came through copy that, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. But looking at Ranger, I knew he didn't have 10. Lisa crouched low, voice tight with fear. Jake, his breathing's fading look. His chest barely moves. "Thin the mix faster," I growled. "I'll handle the lower half." I slid the steel lever under the black crust. Metal hit tar with a dry clack and sank, carving a narrow line. I poured solvent into it. White smoke burst up thick as fog. Lisa coughed, hard eyes watering, but she never let go of Ranger's body. Easy, kid. Just a little more. The puppy's tail twitched barely, but that one motion made us lock eyes. He could still hear us. Above, Scout barked nonstop, circling the pit claws, tearing through dirt until they bled. Scout back. I yelled, "Stay!" He froze, whined softly. That look he gave me, it hit like a punch to the chest. He was saying, "Don't stop, save him." I kept prying around the back legs. Each pull exposed another patch of scorched skin, tiny threads of blood seeping through. My heart twisted. "Come on, kid." "I'm right here," I muttered. Lisa touched my shoulder. "Careful. Hips are deep, too much force, and we'll break him." I nodded, forcing my hand steady. I couldn't let fear win. If we hesitated, the tar would harden again, and that would be the end. Pull a little left, stop, hold it. More solvent in her edge. Okay, 1, 2, 3. A sharp crack split the air. A chunk of tar broke free and flew out. Ranger screamed once high and raw, then went silent. My stomach dropped. Jake, his pulse. Lisa cried. I pressed my hand to his chest, feeling for that faint stuttering beat. "Don't you quit on me. You hear I poured the last of the solvent and levered hard." The tar finally gave way. Ranger convulsed, body recoiling on instinct. Lisa lunged, wrapping him in the silver rescue blanket we'd laid out. "Cover him. Now." We drenched the cloth with cool water. The burnt smell filled the air, then slowly faded. 2 fingers to his neck, weak pulse, but there. Central animal freed. Immediate medical transport required. Lisa wiped her eyes, exhaled a shaking breath. "He's alive, Jake." Before I could answer, Scout rushed in. He bent his head, nose touching Ranger's muzzle, gentle trembling. Ranger's eyes fluttered open. A soft, broken sound escaped him, half sob, half breath. Scout whimpered back and licked his face once tenderly. No one spoke. Only wind. Only breathing. And in that silence I understood we were witnessing something far beyond rescue work. A creature who refused to leave another behind had just saved what was left of him. "Prep the stretcher," I said quietly. "We're taking them both." Lisa nodded, gathering the gear. When I lifted Ranger, his body felt almost weightless, his heartbeat faint under the damp cloth. Scout followed close, step by step, eyes fixed on the pup he'd refused to abandon. I whispered more to myself than anyone. "We did it, kid. You're safe now." The rescue truck roared to life. Doors shut, the hum of the engine mingling with the sound of 2 fragile breaths. And as we rolled forward, the last light of day streamed through the window, falling across the silver blanket, where 2 trembling lives lay side by side, finding their way back to each other. The rescue room was small, filled with the sterile bite of antiseptic, mixed with the lingering scent of asphalt still clinging to the bandages. White fluorescent light poured down, spreading over the small motionless body wrapped in silver thermal blankets. Ranger lay on the stainless steel table, his frame bound tight in cold wraps, each breath thin as a thread of smoke. Scout stayed on the floor beneath, right under the table, eyes locked on the pup above. Every time, Ranger's breathing grew a fraction stronger. Scout lifted his head and whimpered softly, as if counting each heartbeat that refused to stop. I sat beside the table, coffee cup cold in my hand. Lisa stood across from me, carefully replacing the bandages. Her movements were slow, tender, deliberate, like she feared one wrong touch could shatter the fragile thing we'd just pulled back from death. "You see this," she whispered. "Even unconscious, he reacts when Scout barks." I looked at Ranger, then at Scout, and managed a faint smile. That's Brotherhood Lisa. No classroom teaches that. The heart monitor kept its rhythm in the quiet room. Beep, 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 weak but steady. Outside Texas had softened. Sunlight drifted through the window, casting the silhouettes of two dogs onto the floor. One big one, small, bound together in the same fragile beam of gold. I refilled Scout's bowl. He lapped a few times, then rested his head on my boot. For the first time in hours, I breathed slowly again. The adrenaline drained away, leaving only exhaustion and gratitude. Lisa's voice broke the silence. You know what hurts me most, Jake? What? That they can't talk. They endure pain, abandonment, and still find ways to trust us. The words settled heavily in the room. I looked at Ranger, his fur-matted small body wrapped in gauze, tiny streaks of tar still clinging to his paws. Steam rose gently from the ice pack around him, dissolving into the air like life returning one breath at a time. Then Ranger's tail moved. Lisa gasped. Jake, he moved. I leaned in, palm over his chest. The heartbeat was stronger, more certain. Then came a sound, a small broken whine. Scout shot up, barking softly, stepping closer to the table. Ranger's eyes opened, clouded, slow, but alive, and stopped the moment they found Scout. The sight stole my voice. Scout edged closer, nose brushing Ranger's paw. The puppy strained weakly, lifting his head until their noses touched. No one spoke. No one had to. Because in that moment we all knew they'd just won their battle for life using the only weapon they had left, loyalty. Lisa took out her phone and snapped a photo. The light hit perfectly, catching Ranger's glassy eyes, still wet, but glowing like a flicker of fire in the dark. I'm printing this, she said softly. I'll call it The Moment He Came Back. I nodded. I don't believe in miracles, but that day I saw one. When Ranger drifted back to sleep, I stepped outside onto the porch. The sky was turning gold, insects humming low in the grass. Scout followed, lying close to my feet. I rested a hand on his head. You did good, old boy. Without you, we'd have never made it in time. He looked up at me, eyes deep enough to hold the sky. And in that sunset glow, I realized salvation doesn't always come from human hands. Sometimes it comes from the faith of a soul that never stopped believing. Lisa joined me at the door, leaning against the frame, smiling faintly. You know, Jake, I think Scout's the only reason Ranger's alive. Maybe I said, or maybe Ranger saved him too, because I could see it in the calm way Scout finally rested his breathing, even his eyes gentle again. The dog we rescued from despair had been rescued in return. Two souls. One was saved from death, the other was saved from loneliness. And both teaching me something 20 years on the job never could. Sometimes loyalty is its own way of surviving. Night 3 at the rescue station. Texas was windless, the sky heavy and black with only the hum of insects drifting across the open fields. I was on the night shift, sitting in the infirmary, eyes fixed on Ranger's heart monitor. Scout lay on the floor, head resting against the leg of the steel table, eyes never leaving the pup above. All day, Ranger had grown weaker. He'd stopped eating, his breathing turned heavy, and the burns on his chest still oozed despite every new bandage. Lisa said his body might be reacting late to the tar toxins. I said nothing. In 20 years of rescue work, I'd seen creatures rise before they fall, a candle flaring one last time before it died. But with Ranger, I couldn't accept that. Near midnight, the monitor screamed, beep, 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 and then silence. The line went flat. I froze, then lunged forward. Lisa, get the doctor now. She burst in, hair tangled, clutching an emergency syringe. Hearts stopped. I pressed both hands on Ranger's chest, pumping rhythmically. 1, 2, 3. No heartbeat, no sound. Scout howled a long, shattering cry that tore through the quiet room. He rushed forward, pressing his nose to Ranger's face, licking frantically as if to wake him. "Scout out!" I shouted, but he wouldn't move. He stayed pressed against the table, eyes wide, drowning in fear and pain. I kept compressing. Lisa injected adrenaline. "Come on, Ranger. Come on, kid. Breathe, damn it, you can do it." No one spoke after that. Just the ragged breaths, Scout's choked whimpers, and the harsh white light spilling across that small tar-stained body. 1 minute, 2, still nothing. Lisa looked at me, eyes trembling. "Jake, maybe, no, keep going." I pushed harder. 1, 2, 3, then a small cough. The screen flickered back to life. Beep, beep, beep. I sank to my knees, hand still over his chest, tears spilling freely. Lisa exhaled hard and gripped my shoulder. Scout whimpered softly, lowering his head to lick Ranger's paw. He was breathing weak but real. A thin stream of warm air slipped from his nose, proof of life. We looked at each other, too shaken to speak. Moments later, Ranger's eyes fluttered open. No longer clouded. They were clear, steady calm. He looked at me, then at Scout. His muzzle quivered as if trying to form a word before he sighed and rested his head back on the towel. Lisa's voice broke through tears. "Welcome back, little one." I laid a hand gently on his chest. "From now on, you're Ranger." Scout lifted his head-tail, giving the smallest shake. The room went quiet again except for the heartbeat on the monitor, steady and alive. I've never believed in rituals or divine signs, but that night, watching those two, one keeping watch, one returning from the edge, I understood why people call it a miracle. When the doctor left, Lisa cleaned up the tools. I stayed behind, hand still resting on Ranger's head. Scout had fallen asleep, chin on the table leg, breathing evenly. Moonlight spilled through the window, washing their fur in silver. And somewhere inside me the noise stopped too. I wasn't seeing just two dogs anymore. I was seeing a living emblem of loyalty. Something words can't capture, something that teaches humans how to love again. By morning, Ranger could lift his head. Lisa whispered, "See that Jake, maybe Scout called him back." I smiled, watching them side by side. Not just called him. Scout taught him how to live. I stepped outside, pushed open the heavy iron door. Texas sunlight hit my face, warm, fierce, real. I took a deep breath, feeling something in my chest being pulled out of the dark. Last night, I saved a life. But maybe that life saved me too. A week after that night, the one that almost ended everything, Texas finally woke to its first cool dawn after days of relentless heat. No more stench of tar, no more heart monitors, just the damp smell of earth and the soft whisper of wind slipping through the cracks in the door. Ranger was healing. The burns on his chest had dried new fur, sprouting thin, fragile like strands of hope growing back from ash. Every morning when I opened the door, he lifted his head and wagged his tail faintly. Scout was always there, stationed by the entrance, eyes calm and watchful as if guarding something sacred. That morning, Lisa arrived early, carrying 2 new collars, one moss green for Ranger, one earthy brown for Scout. On each silver tag, she'd hand-engraved their names, Ranger and Scout. When I fastened the collars, Ranger tilted his head curiously while Scout leaned forward and licked my wrist once. That small gesture silenced me completely. There are things that don't need words, only presence. By afternoon, we opened the back gate of the station. The Texas sun poured down like honey, spreading over dew-soaked grass. Ranger stepped out first, slow but steady. Scout followed close like a patient older brother. When Ranger lifted his head and inhaled the scent of new grass, his eyes lit up bright, alive, the eyes of someone who'd walked out of hell and found the sky again. Lisa stood beside me and whispered, "See that Jake? He's not looking down anymore. He's looking forward." I smiled, sunlight flashing across my helmet, warm enough to make it hard to believe this was the same brutal land we'd nearly lost him in. "They walked through hell, Lisa," I said. "But because one of them stayed now, they both get to see heaven." Scout circled Ranger once, then pressed his nose to the pup's face. Ranger nipped playfully in return. A small spark of life turned into a thank you. Two black and tan blurs rolled across the grass tails, wagging their barks, echoing through the valley. I sat down on the wooden steps and watched them play two souls, once marked for death, now chasing sunlight as if darkness had never existed. And it struck me, maybe rescue work isn't just a job. Maybe it's the way we choose to keep believing that every living thing deserves a new beginning. Lisa turned to me. "Did you ever think they'd make it?" "No," I admitted. "But I believed they wanted to. And sometimes that kind of will to live beats everything else." The day drifted slowly. Scout stretched out in the grass. Ranger rested his head on Scout's leg. Both stared toward the open fields where the last light was melting into a soft, amber horizon. A simple scene, but to me it held everything I've ever believed in. That life will always find its way back, as long as someone believes it's worth returning to. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo. Two Dobermans, one large one, small, lying together in the fading Texas light. I titled it "Second Chances." Then I posted it to the rescue team's page with a caption that read, "If you ever see a creature left behind, don't turn away. Sometimes one stop, one reaching hand can change two lives forever." That night, thousands of people shared the picture. Messages, thank yous, and stories of other animals saved flooded our inbox. Lisa laughed softly. "Looks like we just reminded people what faith feels like, Jake." "Not us," I said, voice rough. "Ranger and Scout did that." Before leaving, I turned back toward the room. Two small shapes curled together in sleep, Ranger tucked safely inside Scout's embrace. The night breeze slipped through the open window, brushing against their silver tags. They clinked softly, a delicate rhythmic chime like the beating of a heart. I smiled and whispered, "Sleep well, you two warriors. Tomorrow, we start another second chance. If you've stayed until now, thank you truly. Because it's only because of people like you that stories like Ranger and Scouts ever get to be heard." I used to think I was just a rescue worker. But that day, watching those two dogs lying side by side, one surviving the other, refusing to leave, I realized something. Sometimes, we're not just saving an animal. We're saving the best part of ourselves. If you ever see a lost creature, don't turn away. If you ever hear a faint cry in the dark, stop just for a moment. One act of kindness, one heartbeat of compassion can change an entire little world. Share this story. Support the rescue groups around you. Because sometimes the ones we rescue are the ones who rescue us right back. This is Ranger, this is Scout, and this is a story about faith, loyalty, and second chances.